Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're getting right into a deeply tragic and incredibly sensitive case out of Bhojpur Bihar. We're looking into the complex circumstances surrounding the death of a 28-year-old man named Bharat Tiwari. And we're going to look at this primarily through the eyes of the people who knew him best, his grieving family. We'll unpack the evidence, the official police claims, and a community's desperate, ongoing fight for justice.
He was thrown in a pit, shot 5 times. That is the devastating first-hand claim made by Asha Devi, Bharat's mother. To his family, this isn't just some routine police encounter you read about in the news. It's a heartbreaking quest for the truth. They are absolutely convinced that what happened to their son wasn't an act of police self-defense. They believe it was a cold-blooded execution. Section 1, A Family's Tragic Loss, the Grief of a Mother in Balaudi Village. We're starting right here in the village, where a family is struggling to process the sudden, violent loss of their son on June 17, 2026. This was an event that literally shook the entire region and immediately sparked massive public outrage. At the very center of this pursuit for accountability is Bharat's mother, Asha Devi. Her testimony is harrowing, and it completely contradicts the official police narrative. See, the police claimed they were forced to shoot an armed, unstable man out in an open field. But Asha Devi's account paints a chillingly different picture of her son's final moments. The allegations the family is making are incredibly severe. They're basically claiming a complete cover-up. They say Bharat had actually surrendered but was then grabbed by the police, thrown into a pit, and shot, allegedly on the direct orders of the subdivisional police officer. And it doesn't stop there. They allege intense intimidation tactics, too. The family says Bharat's father was detained for a whole day, and his brother Chandan was actually pulled aside by the superintendent of police and threatened with death if he spoke to the media. Because of all this, the family has absolutely zero trust in the local administration. They are demanding a full CBI inquiry. Moving on to Section 2, Activist or Armed Threat. 2 contrasting profiles of Bharat Tiwari. To understand why this case has blown up the way it has and drawn national attention, we really have to look at the 2 totally different versions of Bharat that have been presented to the public. The core conflict really comes down to these opposing views. To his family and his village, Bharat was a dedicated social worker. He was a BSc graduate, someone who actually dreamed of joining the police force himself one day. He was known for passionately fighting for 80 families in Jawinia village who were displaced by Ganges floods, demanding basic rights like soil and water for them. But the police? They saw something completely different. They perceived him as a highly dangerous, mentally unstable gunman who was actively firing at officers and posing a massive threat to public safety. Section 3, The Surrender on Camera, the Facebook Live broadcast that changed everything. The tension really hits a boiling point when we look at the actual standoff, because this wasn't some hidden encounter in the dark. Parts of it were actually broadcast live on Facebook to Bharat's followers, all 1.6 lakh of them. When you break down the timeline, you uncover this really murky 2-day standoff. It kicked off on June 16th, when police initially visited and searched his house. By the morning of the 17th, things had seriously escalated. Bharat goes live on Facebook. And right at the climax of all this, we get to the moment of his alleged surrender, which is immediately followed by the fatal shots. Now, this video evidence is absolutely crucial. In footage recorded right before his death, Bharat is purportedly heard saying he'd put down his weapon if his demands regarding the flood victims were just listened to. Then, the video reportedly shows him firing into the air and tossing his pistol away, toward the police. The family anchors their entire fight for justice right here. They're asking one very pointed question. If he threw away his weapon like the video suggests, why was lethal force used against an unarmed man? Section 4, 5 bullets. The evidence? What the post-mortem report reveals. Let's pivot to the hard, objective evidence that's driving the family's case against the Bihar police. Because at the end of the day, physical evidence doesn't lie. 5. That is the exact number of bullets that struck Bharat Tiwari, according to the official postmortem report, which was backed up by the surgeon at Arasadar Hospital. The specific locations of those 5 bullet wounds tell a really compelling story. We're talking about the upper front of the left thigh, the inner mid-left thigh, the inner mid-right thigh, the outer right thigh, and the back of the mid-left leg. Every single one of those 5 bullets hit his legs and lower extremities. For the family, this is a massive red flag. Think about it. If this was a chaotic, sudden shootout in an open field like the police are claiming, how did all 5 shots precisely hit his legs? The family argues this physical evidence strongly backs up their claim of a targeted incapacitation. It aligns perfectly with his mother's horrifying testimony that he was thrown in a pit and intentionally shot. When you put the physical evidence right next to the official statements, the stark differences explain exactly why the family is fighting this official narrative so incredibly hard. The police say he fired continuously. The family says he threw the gun away. Police claim an open field combat situation. The family says he was thrown in a pit. Police are calling it self-defense. The family's calling it a cold-blooded execution. We are looking at 2 entirely different realities clashing over the tragic loss of a life. Section 5. The Fight for Justice, the Systemic Fallout, and a Village's Uprising. The family's unwavering allegations, combined with that viral video, have sparked a massive systemic response that the government literally couldn't ignore if they tried. What started out as a grieving family's plea has turned into a massive domino effect. Get this, 6 police officers suspended for dereliction of duty. And in a really unusual move, the SDPO and the station house officer have both been formally booked under murder charges. The state government was forced to set up a judicial commission under a retired justice. On top of that, petitions have actually reached the Supreme Court demanding an independent CBI probe, completely bypassing the local authorities. But this fight isn't just happening in courtrooms. The local community has turned their profound grief into a real uprising. They held a massive Mahapanchayat, a huge community gathering at the Kundiswar Mahadev temple. We're talking thousands of people traveling from neighboring states like Uttar Pradesh and Delhi just to stand with Bharat's family. And at this gathering, they gave the government a strict 15-day ultimatum to make sure this case isn't just swept under the rug. Now, even with these official actions, the family's wounds and their deep suspicions remain. Asha Devi has been very clear that she has absolutely zero trust in the local administration. She believes the orders came right from the top of the district level, from the district magistrate down to the superintendent of police. And she's vowed to take this fight all the way to the High Court, or even to Delhi if she has to. So, as we wrap up this explainer, we're left with a really unsettling question. It's about accountability, the absolute limits of state power, and a grieving family just looking for the truth. When state power goes unchecked, who answers for the dead? It's a question that Bharat Tiwari's family, and honestly the entire nation, is currently waiting for the justice system to answer. Thanks so much for joining me to explore this case.